Well, good morning. This is Shaka Mitchell, the Tennessee State Director for the American Federation for Children, and I am coming to you, on March 10th, 2021, and we are really excited to chat with a parent, to speak with Mary Austin Smith. Mary Austin, good to see you this morning.
Hi, it's very good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. And I said morning. I guess it's afternoon technically, but
technically.
I could still use more coffee, so maybe I'm just still in that mentality. Yeah. So Mary Austin, for those of you watching, you may have seen, because it actually got a lot of traction on social media, but Mary Austin is a mother. She's also a pediatric dentist, so she's coming to us from the middle of a busy day, and we're really appreciative for that. But she is the mother of 4, and one of her children goes to a school. It's called Madonna Learning Center, and she had a great piece in the Memphis Commercial Appeal about this, just talking about the school, talking about how they found it, and we just wanted to talk a little bit because we know there's a lot of parents who are thinking about their children, thinking about where they're going to place them. Maybe they don't know about this specific school, but maybe they also don't know about the program. And so we're just really excited to hear directly from a parent. Anytime we can do that, we're super appreciative of it. So again, thank you for joining us. Mary Austin, give us like the quick highlights. I mentioned that you are a mom of 4, but tell us a little bit about your kids.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm a mom of 4. My oldest is Davidson, and he is 5 years old, and he is just the light of my world. He's so sweet. All of my children are, but he's our oldest, and we found out when he was 38 weeks that he had a diagnosis of Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. So that was something that we were obviously not expecting, and he's the oldest of 4, like I said. So we have twins that are 3. Boy-girl twins that are 3, Kit and Phoebe Diane. And then we have a new little baby who's relatively new. He's actually almost a year old. He'll be a year next month. And his name is little Oliver. So those
busy.
Are yes, we have a very lively house.
You got a lively house. Yeah, I don't know if you've got, pets to add to the mix, but man, you've got a lot going on.
Lolly and Winston, they sleep with us every night. So we have usually several children in our bed and 2 dogs for sure sleeping in our bed every night. So
that's great. It's chaos. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing though. And okay, so you said 38 weeks, 37, 38 weeks, you find out that your first child has Downs. How does that feel? How did that strike you and your husband? I know you are in healthcare. So maybe you're more measured and more of an expert than many of us, but yeah, what were some of your thoughts?
Well, I'm a very transparent person, so I'm going to shoot you straight. And, it was pretty traumatic. I felt like my world had been rocked. All the things, anytime you have, your whole life, you grow up and you think of what you want in life, and you want a family and you want children and you want to do these things. And my husband's a pilot, so I was thinking like, oh, my son's going to be a pilot. This is going to be so great, and he's going to go flying with his dad and all this stuff. And so, when we got the diagnosis, it was just kind of like, oh, what all of the expectations that I sort of had for my son, it was kind of like the carpet had been pulled out from underneath me. And so there was not a second where I was devastated and I was heartbroken, and I still today am devastated and heartbroken that my son has deficits. All of my children have deficits in some way or another, and I don't like that they have deficits. I wish they were perfect. You know what I mean? But
yes.
Davidson's are obviously, when you see him, you know what his diagnosis is pretty much right off the bat. And I think it was, especially me knowing very well what Down syndrome was, and all the complications you can have with it, the health issues, the predispositions to leukemia, and all the things that maybe even the general public wouldn't necessarily know. Most people know that they're, delayed and things like that, but there are a lot of other cardiac issues that you can have so all of that was sort of running through my mind. And it was just, pretty traumatic. But it was also like, kind of like that fight or flight response that I was like, these are the issues that we may have, but immediately it was like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to take care of him? And how is Davidson going to be the best Davidson that he can be? How is he going to reach his full God-given potential that I still have that same thing for my other children? So it was, kind of this, this just unique experience that was very difficult and is still difficult. Absolutely. But it was unexpected for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that calls to mind is it's a good reminder that, that we've got to be gracious with one another. Meaning, I bet it could have been easy to sort of maybe look at you and your husband and go, boy, here's, a young couple, professionals, right? Like a pilot, you said he's a pilot, you're a dentist. Like, this is like living the dream. And, but in reality, all families may have things going on at home and with our kids that are really challenging. Challenging. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Just really quickly, I wonder if you can say, you gave us a few of the things that kind of surround a diagnosis of Down syndrome, but what does that look like in terms of how you think? So many of us, especially as parents, we also think about schools, right?
Right.
My kid's going to be, everybody thinks my kid's going to be a genius. Okay.
Right.
And so, I think my mom is still like waiting for me to be her kid who is a genius. But what does it mean educationally, or what's a typical scenario for with a diagnosis of Down syndrome?
Absolutely. So, immediately that's one of the places that my mind immediately went. And thankfully, I had a lot of people reached out to me, and it was a little bit overwhelming actually initially. And I kind of was like, I just need some space. I need to process all this. But one of the things that I found out pretty quickly was that we really needed to look into this fantastic school called Madonna Learning Center. And so I have, as a native Memphian, I had actually driven by Madonna my entire life, back and forth. Didn't know a whole lot about it. Knew it was a special place, but really it's a small school, and it wasn't exactly on my radar. I did a lot of, I worked with a lot of kids growing up, and I've always enjoyed working with kids, and so volunteering and things. But Madonna was not an organization that I had intimately been involved with, so I didn't really know a whole lot about it.
Because it's a pretty specialized school, right? So if you don't know, you don't know. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so, but what I kept hearing was that, everyone kept telling me it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You got to look at Madonna though. You got to look at Madonna. And I kept resonating. So it was kind of like, I'm a planner. And so I like to have a game plan. And so I started, researching Madonna, and, when I was, I was really blessed growing up. My parents had worked really hard, and they made the sacrifice to put me in an all-girls private school here in town. And it was one of the biggest blessings for me growing up. And so when I was 15, I got a job, and I really wanted to work to save up to be able to send my children to private school, because that was such a thing that I really liked and valued as a kid. And I thought I would always like to really make that sacrifice. And so we'd kind of already been we wanted to be on a private school track, because we have so many great private schools in Memphis. And so Madonna obviously is a private school. And that was something that I felt like they would be able to specialize and cater towards Davidson's needs in a unique way.
Yeah, so Madonna, and you do mention that there are a number of private schools in the Memphis area, and for a variety of reasons, right? And some of those are really specialized. You attended one that was, I think you'd call that specialized, an all-girls school,
Right,
and Madonna as well. So what about attending Madonna Learning Center?
Yeah.
What's something that you just love about the place? What's something that Davidson, really loves about it? And by the way, tell us, how old is he?
He's 5 years old, and this is his second year of Madonna. And it's like, how long is your radio show? How many ways can I just tell you how Madonna has just been the biggest blessing of our of my life, and or one of the biggest blessings of my life, and certainly for our family, and certainly for Sweet Davidson. And it was kind of one of those things that, going back to your original question about when I first learned about his diagnosis, one thing that really struck me was that I really wanted Davidson to have appropriate social skills. And I remember reading a book really early on that said, because probably anyone who's met anyone with Down syndrome, one of the things that people always talk about is, oh, they're so affectionate and loving and caring, and which is absolutely true. But sometimes when they're older, some of that affection is not appropriate. And so, you don't want a 45 necessarily hug a stranger. And so that was something for me that was very important, is that I wanted Davidson to be Davidson and to be this wonderful little boy, young man, grown man, but I wanted him to have appropriate social skills. And when we toured Madonna, one of the first things I noticed was that when students, this is pre-COVID, obviously, so we were not having to social distance, but students would come through the halls, and when they would see me, they would stop and they would make eye contact. That was really important. They would shake, put their hand out to shake my hand, and they would introduce themselves. So this was whether it was a verbal patient or a nonverbal or whatever, because they have children with many different disabilities and abilities at Madonna Learning Center. It's not just children who have diagnoses of Down syndrome. And so when I was on the tour, I just started weeping, because I thought, this is what I want for my son. I want him to be smart. I want him to be appropriate, and I want him to rock at life. You know what I mean? Like, I want him to be successful. And when I saw Madonna, I thought, this is the type of place that I want for my little boy. And I feel like they're getting it, and they're doing it. And so it was just an amazing thing. And one other thing, you asked, what does he love about it? He loves life, and he loves to learn. He loves books. But he's got a strong will, and so the thing that I think is so great about Madonna is that they don't just say, okay, we're setting the bar here for you, Davidson, and this is where you need to be. They're setting the bar here, and they're saying, when you get to here, we're setting it here. And and then we're raising it, and we're raising it. So that's one of the things I love about Madonna is their expectations. They don't put Davidson in a box, as no child should be put in a box. Everyone, whether you have Down syndrome or whether you don't, whether you're going to Princeton, you should be allowed to flourish and thrive in whatever it is that you're doing. And Madonna they have tapped into it, and they are doing amazing things. The student to teacher ratio is fantastic. They have basically, Davidson has 3 classroom teachers, and there are 4 students in his class. Like, it's unbelievable. Wow. And he loves them. And they're always, I got a text message earlier of a video of Davidson counting, with his mouth, with his finger, pointing to the numbers as he's counting. And these are things that, I'm not a teacher. And when we were doing virtual last year, it was very challenging, and we were still Zooming and everything. But he's awesome, and he's doing really, really well there. And I just am so grateful for Madonna.
Yeah, of course. There's nothing like seeing your children thrive, right? And the flip side of that, unfortunately, is there's nothing, in my experience as a parent, there's nothing more frustrating than thinking about your kids in a situation where they're not thriving. And the flip side of that is, like, as joyful as it is on the one hand, it's heartbreaking.
Absolutely.
Heartbreaking on the other side. Yeah. Okay. So, in the time we have left, I want to talk about, like, the practical kind of, like, planning. You said you're a planner, but you're like a planner. Right. You're thinking about private school when you were in school.
Right.
That's foresight. So, the tuition at Madonna, I think, is in that, $14,000 a year range. Even if you have been saving, that's real money.
Right.
So talk about kind of how you make that more accessible, and because you found a great way to do that.
So, like you said, we had thought about private school tuition for our son. We were not anticipating at the age of 3 or 4 spending $14,000 on on education. And I was a newly, a recent, graduate where I had, had been in residency. And so there's it's a huge financial burden. And, what someone mentioned to us, and I think it was actually when we were on the tour at Madonna, was this amazing program called the IEA, and it's the Individualized Education Account program. And it sounds too good to be true, but it actually is true. And so they have, it's a program that you can apply for. And if you're eligible, then, or if your son is eligible, then they will pay for, give you, it's like a quarterly stipend, essentially, that goes towards tuition. And it ends up being about, I think it may differ based on where you are, but I think ours is covers about half of the cost of Madonna Learning Center, and which comes to be about $7,000. And so,
and this is from the state, right? Because it's a state-run program.
Yes, it's a state-run program. And, it's unbelievable. When they told me about it, I was like, yeah, I'm sure that doesn't exist, and they were like, no, it does. I'm like, okay, I'll look into it. And so it exists, and it is amazing. I mean, it's, we were able to apply for it, and, worked, to see if Davidson would qualify. And once we found out that he did qualify, we worked with a lady at the IEA program in Nashville, and she has just been a godsend. And one thing I think that is really cool about this, that a lot of organizations sometimes lose sight of, is when they're helping people, it's such a big organization, and then they forget that they actually are supposed to be helping people. You know what I mean? And my experience with the IEA has not been that. And I felt like we had an advocate at the IEA who was pulling for Davidson, who was advocating for him to be eligible, because, like you said, you have to qualify, and you have to do a lot of, there's a lot of paperwork with it, but she was really rooting for him. And I'm just so grateful for Miss Hunter, who is at the IEA program, and she has just been such a blessing and helped us navigate, the whole process. And it's just been such a tremendous gift to our family and to Sweet Davidson.
Yeah. So to recap for parents, because I know we have a lot of parents who will see this and who are curious about the program. So this is a program, state-run program, for students who have a set of diagnoses, right? And so not everything qualifies. So for instance, I know that right now, dyslexia doesn't qualify. You wouldn't be eligible if your student has dyslexia. But for a range of other things, you would be eligible. And like Mary Austin said, parents can apply. There's not a limited number of these. So if 30,000 people apply and they're eligible, 30,000 people are going to get it. And what that is about $7,000, depends a little bit on where you live, what your district is. It's money that would have gone maybe to the public school, but frankly, I know a lot of parents who have students with exceptional needs pull their kids out, right? And maybe homeschool, maybe have to find, use money for occupational therapy and physical therapy and lots of other things. And you can use that money for tuition or for a range of other services. And it sounds like, Mary Austin, most of what you use it for is towards tuition, because you're getting a lot of that stuff right there at Madonna.
Yes, that's correct. And I don't think I said this earlier, but one thing that is so fantastic about Madonna is that they have a physical therapist, a speech therapist, and an occupational therapist, behavioral therapist, that he sees every day. So all of his therapy, I'm not taking him to other places. He does get some extra therapy out, that just because, because we choose to do that, but he's getting all those therapies. And so, for my nieces who were in the public school system here in Memphis for a while, they had a child who actually had Down syndrome, and they were his friend, but they expressed just, it was really stressful oftentimes for him, because, he wasn't hitting the mark, and he was leaving classes to go to therapy, but it was just really difficult. And just are really
disruptive, sounds like.
Yeah, and how, everybody's doing the best they can, but you can't cater to everyone's needs in every institution. And so, for this little one, it seemed as though he was really getting overlooked, and just kind of a product of the system. And that was something that we are just having the opposite experience at Madonna, and so thankful for the IEA for the support financially and to enable us to place Davidson in such a wonderful school.
Well, I want to ask you one more question, and that is, advice you would give to any parents who are thinking about, applying, and, how did you learn more about it maybe, or what would you tell other parents who say, hey, tell me more about that program? We're going to tell them to watch this interview. But, one of the things I also want to mention about the program is, as compared to many scholarship programs, this is based on the child's diagnosis. It's not based on where you live. It's not based on your income, your family income. And frankly, I think that's the way it should be, right? These things don't discriminate. Down syndrome doesn't discriminate. If it's dyslexia, which I hope eventually will be covered, doesn't discriminate. Blindness doesn't discriminate. These things can happen to you if you live in Memphis, if you live in, Mountain City. High, low income doesn't really matter. And I think that's a really cool thing about the program, is that
Absolutely.
It's open. It's really trying to help kids.
It's,
right?
it's absolutely, It's very, very kid focused, and which is the way it should be. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So give us a parting word. Anything else that you would tell parents who are considering, hey, I'm thinking about, maybe I'm in the public school system right now. I'm thinking about looking at a different school, maybe even participating in this program. What's something that I should consider? What's something I should think about?
You should do it. You should look into it. As a parent of, whether it's a parent of a child with special needs or a typical child, we are our child's advocate. And especially, I'm uniquely Davidson's advocate in a way that I'm not for my other children. I'm still an advocate for all of them, but it's just a little bit different. And I would say, please look into this program and see what your options are. Don't be limited, based on what you think you can do, because just like I don't want to put limitations on and saying what my son will be able to do or will not be able to do. I'm not going to put him in a box like that. I also don't want to put him in a box and say, well, you have to do this because, we don't have enough money, or because this is going to be too much of a sacrifice, or I just don't know how we would even begin to look into this program. Like, everyone has a computer, everyone has a phone. If you don't have one, find someone that does, and look into this program, because it's amazing. And one of the biggest prayers that I had for Davidson before he was born was that he would speak, and that he would reach his God-given potential, but that he would speak. And he's had lots of therapy since he was 4 months of age, and we've been very thankful for that. But one of the things that's really neat is that this past spring, so almost a year ago, his verbal skills had just flourished and developed. And I know that is directly related to the success that he's had at Madonna, and just seeing how he's got his champions there. I mean, they all are just working so hard with him. And I think that's something that, maybe at some point he would have learned to speak, but I think absolutely there's a direct correlation to Davidson being at Madonna and his increase in his speech, and just being, inundated with people who know how to manage him and how to meet his needs. Yeah. And that's what they're there. I mean, they are specialized to deal with this. And so it's just so awesome because they love what they do, and they're so happy they're there. I mean, they're amazing. The teachers there and the therapists are amazing people. And this is something that it's more than I could have ever hoped for my child. And so
that's awesome. I mean, I'm just
so look
happy.
Into it. Look into that.
Look into it. You heard it, from Mary Austin. Someone's asking a question: can parents get the scholarship to use for homeschooling child? Yeah, if you are coming from the if a student is coming into kindergarten or coming from the public school system and you qualify for the IEA, you can use this for some out of school expenses and homeschool expenses. And there's we know, especially depending upon the diagnosis, you might need to be at home, right? That might be the best educational setting. And so, yes, Patterson-Williams Learning, I believe that's true. And you can click the link down there in the comments, and it'll tell you all about the program. Mary Austin, I just want to thank you so much for being with us. Be careful, what you wish for. It sounds like you're gonna get it. You wished for him to be verbal. Well, you can't turn that faucet off. So when he's knocking on your door at 6 a.m. and
last night it was 3 a.m. So it was definitely mommy. I'm so happy to hear those words. I'll take.
No, that's a sweet thing. Of course, we wish you and Davidson and the rest of your family the best. But thanks for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Have a great day. Bye-bye.